In a U.S. election dominated by domestic policy, it surprised many Americans that Republican challenger Mitt Romney mentioned Mali as an emerging security threat, a threat the U.S. administration says it too is increasingly worried about. Calls may be mounting for a foreign intervention in northern Mali, but it's not yet clear what part the U.S. will play. A consensus is growing, though something needs to be done before al-Qaeda groups get a firmer grip on a region the size of France.
Our approach is to make sure that al-Qaeda and elements of al-Qaeda have no place to hide.
Administration officials are reluctant, though, to say exactly what the U.S. will contribute to an interventionist force led by a group of West African nations known as Ecowas. But they say they have confidence in an African solution to an international problem, acknowledging ridding the region of militants is not an easy task.
It's going to be a challenge. It's absolutely going to be a challenge. I think it's a challenge that can be overcome. I think you see that African forces, when provided support from the international community, can really get the job done. It's a question now of determining what will be the role for Ecowas, for the various players in Ecowas, what will be the role for the various regional players. Some of the important regional players are not members of Ecowas.
ECOWAS is expected to come back to the UN Security Council with concrete plans for a regional force numbering 3,000, which will receive support internationally. Some fear by the time a force is nailed down, militants will have consolidated their power long term, and they warn of regional instability if the force fails.
We've gotten a lot of talk about doing something, but not enough concrete detail that can be looked at. And certainly the numbers that ECOWAS is talking about, 3,000, are wholly inadequate for the task at hand, which is restoring the territorial integrity of Mali.
Amid skepticism an African-led interventionist mission can deliver, there are mounting calls for Western nations to finance it. But Washington is cautious about another military conflict post-Libya, which is why the focus is on a regional solution.
We need to work with the nations in the region. They all agree that we're facing the same threat there.
Despite the reluctance to get involved militarily, reports say the CIA is already flying surveillance drones over northern Mali. Some insist the only solution lies in political negotiations with the country's military coup leaders to bring back a democratic government.
I think those voices for peace, those voices for democracy are still very much active in Mali. I think many were completely shocked by the quick turn of events with the coup, and I think it's taken time for them to really regroup. But those voices are firm.
With just 10 days to go before the presidential election, the U.S. is unlikely to say much more about Mali for now. Administration officials say the U.S. is just one partner among many, and a plan has yet to emerge. But there's also a growing sense here in Washington that something needs to be done to break up al-Qaeda's grip on northern Mali before it's too late. Nina Maria Potts for JN1 in Washington.